Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm your host, Arnav Sarkar, here with episode 72. Another week of college football and the NFL to get to. As always, we might go into the rankings, maybe even some NBA and NHL. We'll see later on in the show. But first of all, wanted to start with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights getting their first win in a month since the Washington game. So, I mean, great job for RU to break the losing skid there and improve to 5-4, one win away from bowl eligibility. The early season wins, including big wins over Virginia Tech and Washington, coming in handy as Rutgers really struggled in the month of October. Losses to Nebraska, Wisconsin, UCLA, USC, defense non-existent in a lot of those contests. But this time around, defense was very good. And are you able to get the big win after some struggling performances, beating the Golden Gophers, 8th in this old team in Minnesota? A big performance by Ethan Cagman, especially in the first half. I mean, he had 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to Dymere Miller, and a pick. Ian Strong making a ridiculous grab with the ball out in front of him, and Ethan really dialing it up. No Kalmanangai, but Antoine Rabin and Deshaun Benjamin in the backfield for Rutgers. And Minnesota struck first, but Rutgers was able to answer and take the lead on the couple of Dymere Miller touchdown passes. And it's really good to have a passing offense with guys like Miller, KJ Duffy, and Strong. Minnesota answering in the third quarter with their own touchdown. And then it was the Rutgers defense that really stepped up with a forced fumble from Tyrene Powell, Ian Strong catching the pass in the fourth quarter, and then a safety. So 2 big defensive plays. Offense really stepped up in the first half. Second half, Minnesota was getting pressure, but then the defense stepping up with a defensive fumble and a safety, and then a field goal for Rutgers on their next drive to push it to 10. And at that point, it was too late. Minnesota got the field goal. Rutgers got the onside kick recover and snap the 4-game losing skid. This week, they go to Maryland. So an interesting game there. Terps are sitting at 4-5. Rutgers at 5-4. So Maryland coming off a couple of tough losses. They did lose to Northwestern, but they're able to knock off USC, fell to Minnesota, and then number 1 Oregon on the road. That's obviously a tough team for anyone to play. But this week hosting the Scarlet Knights, Rutgers have had problems with them lately, but we'll see how things go with the Terps. Chances are Rutgers could pull a win. I believe Rutgers is a 3.5-point underdog. I've seen 6.5, so definitely an underdog of some sort. But I think they have their chances this time around. I think they'll definitely be in the game as long as their defense and their offense are looking the way they did last time. Terrapins are favored by 3.5 points in this contest here. So we'll see. They have a good explosive passing attack, running attack. They might be able to capitalize on a win there. But I don't think Rutgers by any means is going to be out of the game. Should be a close one. An explosive passing attack and rushing attack there from the Terrapins. So we'll have to see. Rutgers does struggle against this team, but the season is definitely back on track. And if they aren't able to clinch it this week, they do get Illinois at home and then a road game at Michigan State, who's also been a team who's kind of been up and down as of late, reeling off a loss to Indiana. Illinois also going in the wrong direction after improving to gaining a ranking. They've struggled after. They struggle with good teams, but they're able to knock out Purdue, Michigan, falling to Oregon and Minnesota, but a chance to rebound here in their final 3 as well for the Fighting Illini. But that's going to be the Rutgers talk of the week. Great job from Ethan Kalagmanis dialing it up to Dymere Miller, dialing it up to Ian Strong. Just the passes downfield were insane. I mean, and then on defense, Rutgers really stepping up in the second half and, making game-breaking plays. The fumble, the safety in the end zone on getting Max Brosmer down, and just a really great performance by RU to snap the losing skid and get the season back on track. So that's all you can ask for as a Rutgers fan. The goal of, a better bowl game, maybe 7-8 wins, South and West, hopefully still in play. It definitely appears to be in play after this week. So that's all Rutgers could really ask for. In terms of the rest of college football around the week, kind of same old. But and just to read through some scores, Miami getting the big their first loss of the season, a huge upset by Georgia Tech, knocking Miami from the ranks of undefeateds, and I think right now maybe even out of the playoff picture altogether, depending on what happens the rest of the way. But yeah, Georgia Tech pulling the big upset. They had the knockoff of FSU to start the season, and knocking off the Canes, who were previously undefeated. The lucky streak is over for Miami, and they take the L. Ohio State following off their big win against their rival Penn State, with a more comfortable win, 45-0 against Purdue. Texas knocking off Florida. Army over North Texas. They rose to 16. I think it's the AP rankings. Clemson over Virginia Tech, 24-14. Georgia falling to Ole Miss, 28-20. That's a big one because now Georgia sits at number 12 in the CFP rankings and out of a playoff spot at the moment. So they've got to keep winning. Ole Miss with a huge upset. They usually aren't able to beat teams like that, but they definitely did step up in a big way to knock off the Georgia Bulldogs. 28-10, so pretty convincingly. And Carson Beck has had problems. Georgia just really hasn't been consistently all that great. But I mean, yeah, other than that, just to go through some other scores from college football, Indiana knocking off Michigan 20-15 to stay undefeated. They are 10-0 and looking for a playoff berth. And with Purdue the last week, I mean, that's almost a guaranteed win. Ohio State, the big challenge for next week. This week they have a bye, but IU slowed down for the first time this season, able to get out a gritty win over But they after Michigan scored first, it was IU getting up 17-3 before letting Michigan back into the game. Tried to tie the game, were not able to do that, and then iced it with a field goal. But Indiana stays undefeated. They get the Buckeyes for a big clash there. Colorado over Texas Tech, 41-27. Tulane joins the rankings, 52-6 with the 52-6 win over hapless Temple Owls. South Carolina knocking off Vanderbilt, 20-7 with a 23 ranking in the AP. In the AP poll, Tennessee knocking off Mississippi State, Oregon rolling over Maryland, Notre Dame dominating FSU. Alabama with a nice win over LSU. Their season certainly back on track. They get Mercer this week. Jalen Milroe, a bit of a quiet game through the air, 12 for 18, 109, but a monster 185 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns by the dual threat quarterback and Jay Miller with 50 receiving yards there, and just not a great performance by LSU. Nussmeier with 2 picks, and Alabama just rolled, and they've definitely recovered from their midseason skid where they fell to Vanderbilt. Struggled with South Carolina, lost to Tennessee, but since then a blanking of Mizzou and a dominant win over LSU before a tough warm-up game because Mercer is 9-1 in the FCS, so that should be quite an interesting one. Definitely not a game to take easy by any means, but they should definitely be the favorite, but they definitely don't want another loss to they don't want another loss to a good team in Mercer. So but yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I got with the Crimson Tide and Mercer Bears there. But other than that, Alabama definitely bouncing back. They're definitely on track. Missouri knocking off Oklahoma. They're ranked 7 and with number 24 in the AP poll with the 7-2 ranking, knocking off the Sooners with Drew Pynan at quarterback, and Boise State with the 13 seed. They have that playoff auto bid with a group of 5 seemingly unlocked, knocking off Nevada. Penn State, a big bounce back from their painful loss to the Buckeyes in the whiteout, knocking off Washington, dominating Washington 35-6 in typical Penn State fashion, and BYU winning the Holy War against Utah to stay undefeated. They have the 7 ranking, and they've been another one of the big surprises. Utah State falling to Washington State 49-28. and Washington State 8-1. John Mateer 179 yards, 4 touchdowns. They're outside of the playoff picture at the moment, but those are all the major scores from around around college football. And yeah, I mean, I guess just to get to a little bit of a preview here for next weekend. As I did mention, Mercer taking on Alabama. So certainly not a team to take lightly, although it is it is FCS week. Yeah, I mean that's kind of an SEC thing. But some of the other better games, Utah taking on Colorado. Utah's really struggled. They were supposed to be one of the favorites in the Big 12. They're now 4-5. Colorado actually 18-7-2 quietly after all the hype died down in the AP poll there. So Colorado looking good. Clemson taking on Pittsburgh. Both teams 7-2 as well. Ohio State taking on Northwestern. Northwestern sitting at 4-5. Taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes, 8-1. So that should be a good game as well. At Wrigley Field, so that should be an interesting one. Ohio State, the big matchup against Indiana, certainly not a team to take lightly. Boston College taking on SMU, SMU looking to try to keep their CFP hopes alive. They're 8-1 and they're ranked 14th in the AP poll, so not too far out of a berth. Virginia goes to Notre Dame, LC Florida, Louisville, Stanford, Penn State, Purdue, Mizzou, South Carolina. Should be an interesting one. Arizona State taking on Kansas State. Boise State looking to keep their bid alive at San Jose State this week. Oregon going to Wisconsin for the Big Ten's night game. Tennessee, Georgia should be a really good one. Kansas, BYU at night. Yeah, Tennessee, Georgia for a playoff berth there. Definitely the Dogs like to stay alive. Another loss will probably knock them out. Washington State, New Mexico, and New Mexico State taking on Texas A&M, who is also on the outside looking in. Definitely suffered a loss to South Carolina last week out, but they get New Mexico State in the non-conference. So that's pretty much the week of college football in a nutshell. I guess to get over to the NFL side of things now. Or before we do that, why don't we take a look at the CFP ranking? So I think that's going to be a little weekly staple going forward. But it's definitely Big Ten domination, which is nice to see if you're a Big Ten fan. Obviously, the home team Rutgers. Definitely with the bias. But I mean, I've seen how hard the Big Ten East is and how hard the Big Ten is, and it's nice to bring it up north. Even though I'm not really a big Michigan fan, but it's nice to see that the Big Ten getting their respect. Oregon with the number 1 spot, 10-0. Ohio State number 2, 8-1. Texas is the lone SEC team in the mix at 3 with 8-1. Penn State number 4, 8-1. Indiana number 5, 10-0. Look at that. BYU 9-0. Tennessee in the 7th spot. Notre Dame 8. Miami at 9. Alabama 10. Ole Miss 11. And Georgia 12. But because of the playoff format, Boise State would take their spot at 13. SMU 14. A&M 15. And so on and so forth. But that's a little college football ranking. So it's interesting how they're the SEC. Who's always gotten the bias from the committee now. 4 of the top 5 teams being in the Big Ten because a lot of these SEC teams have beaten each other, while the Big Ten simply has not messed up. The ACC getting some more respect, although not quite. The Big Ten definitely are getting the benefit of the doubt there with 4 of the top 5 teams, but I guess just going on to the NFL slate for this week, or for last week. I'll start with last week. Last Thursday, great game between the Bengals and the Ravens. Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow put on a show with 4 touchdowns apiece. Absolutely dazzling stuff there by these 2 legendary quarterbacks. Jamar Chase with a ridiculous 264-yard game with 3 touchdowns. An absolute beast. But it was Baltimore getting the win, even though Cincinnati went up 21-7. The Ravens came all the way back to take the lead. Bengals tied it, but then it was Baltimore taking the lead, and Cincinnati attempted to go for 2, which failed. So Bengals get the win there. The Giants lose a big one in Germany, and people are saying the Daniel Jones era might be over after a performance where he went 22 for 37, 190 yards, and 2 picks. Chiron Tracy lost a fumble. The Panthers, Bryce Young the Panthers have won 2 in a row. Bryce Young, decent 15 for 25, 126 and touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 153 on the ground, and Carolina able to get the win over, scrappy Giants team. But people are saying the Daniel Jones era is over. We'll have to see for sure what happens after the bye. But I believe they do have the number 1 pick in the draft right now, which Giants looking for a quarterback. I think that's a good sign. But Panthers win in Germany against against a hapless Giants team, I should say, as a Giants fan. But big loss for New York, I guess, in terms of getting the pick. So Patriots taking on the Bears and knocking them off. Drake May, 15 for 25, 184, touchdown, a pick. Caleb Williams, 16 for 30 for just 120. The Bears, after a strong start, they've kind of looked a little hapless last couple of weeks after losing to Washington, just getting dominated by the Cardinals and the Patriots in back-to-back weeks. So Patriots are now improved to 3-7. Bears fall to 4-5, and that's not going to cut it, especially in the competitive NFC North. The Buccaneers taking on the 49ers, and they lose to their second straight Super Bowl participant in 2 weeks. Quiet game from Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay. Although they were in this game, the Niners with a much-needed win to get over 500, including with Tampa Bay tying it up, the field goal, but Jake Moody hitting the 44-yard game winner at the buzzer to put the San Francisco 49ers atop the NFC West, or not quiet, because the Cardinals actually with a 6-4 record after their dispatching of the New York Jets, which we'll get to in a second. But first, the Chiefs stay alive, undefeated against the Broncos. Another sloppy game from the offense, although Kareem Hunt, doing well. Travis Kelce, I believe, had a good performance as well. Mahomes, 266 and touchdown. Bo Nix, 215 and 2 touchdowns. The Broncos actually with the 14-3 lead early, but Travis Kelce became the all-time receiving leader for Kansas City at the end of the first half. Quiet third quarter and fourth quarter in terms of the scoring, but the Chiefs chip away at the deficit and were able to take the lead on 2 Harrison Butker field goals. The Broncos set themselves up for the game-winning field goal, but the Chiefs broke through and blocked it, and they found all sorts of ridiculous ways to win. Offense, defense, special teams, and this one the most craziest win of them all. Chiefs continue to find ways to win, not playing their best, but as long as you got a really good defense, you got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and you've plugged in Kareem Hunt at running back. You've gotten Xavier Worthy, DeAndre Hopkins, the true number 1 receiver there for Kansas City. This team's only going to get better, but they might hit the wall because the Bills are coming up. The Bills have been playing exceptional football. They're 8-2. So we'll see. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be up against it, but the Chiefs have won before in Buffalo in the playoffs. So and people are calling this the worst 9-0 team ever. We've seen that before with other teams. I mean, we'll see if they end up winning the Super Bowl again or not. But they definitely aren't quite as good. However, they aren't quite they aren't quite as good as they usually have been. However, they've actually been able to continue to win games, whether it be Isaiah Likely's toe or anything else, or the pass interference against the Bengals, or I mean, Todd Bowles not going for 2 with the Buccaneers. The field goal. I mean, Chiefs they just haven't looked good on offense. They looked really good 2 years ago. Defense last year, but their offense have just been so inconsistent. I mean, they might be falling off. The Ravens do look good. The Bills do look good, but the Chiefs, as always, they're definitely going to be a contender. They definitely are going to be a contender. They're going to be a contender. Can they win the Super Bowl playing like this? I'm not sure, but I think they, as long as they continue to keep their offense going and improve on that side, as long as their defense and special teams are going to be this good, I think they'll be able to knock it down. They'll definitely be in the mix again. It's just up to them whether they want to, improve, because this is just not going to cut it in the playoffs. It just simply is not. But they are the Chiefs. I think they'll be able to figure it out. But yeah, this week they get the Buffalo Bills. So we'll see if they can really hold up against a good team. It's been quite a while for Kansas City since they've played one of those teams. They've gotten 2 wins against the Ravens and Bengals early, and since then, they haven't really faced the stiffest of competitions. But Buffalo, in the late game, we'll see if they can find their winning ways. They beat them last year in the playoffs. So that's my take on the Chiefs, who are somehow 9-0. But the Bills knocking off the Colts. They're 8-2. The 2 losses coming to Baltimore and Houston in back-to-back weeks. But I mean, they just look good. Josh Allen 282 picks though. Joe Flacco 272 yards, 3 picks. I'm not looking too great for Indianapolis, but the Bills are hot going hosting the Chiefs. That's a big game. Steelers taking on the Commanders. A good game between two playoff teams. Russell Wilson's cooking, but just a unthinkable offsides. Free first down for Pittsburgh as they drew the Commanders offsides, and this is a game between two contenders here. Steelers getting the win, 28-27 against Washington. The Vikings hanging on against the Jaguars. They're 7-2, and a low-scoring affair. I mean, Sam Darnold, 241, 3 picks. Mac Jones, 111 yards, 2 picks. Just a very sloppy game. The game of only field goals for the Vikings. John Parker Romo, the kicker, a very interesting name. And Mac Jones with the 1 yard scamper for Jacksonville. Just not a lot of scoring in that game. The Saints bouncing back, knocking off the Falcons, and a little bit of an upset there. Saints haven't won a game in quite a while, but they're able to snap their losing skid. The Falcons 6-4. I believe atop of the NFC South, with the Buccaneers having lost 4 straight after their strong start to the season. So yeah, they play the Giants after the bye, so that might be a good way to snap that one. I wonder who, depending on who comes out at quarterback for New York, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. We don't know if Daniel Jones is going to even start or not, or what, but who knows? Who knows? But anyway, for Tampa Bay, good chance to get back on the ropes. Titans taking on the Chargers. Chargers knocking off Tennessee. They're 6-3. Titans 2-7. Very hapless team. Chargers look to stay alive in the wild card race. Is kind of what happens usually. With the Chiefs just way ahead at 9-0. The Jets, after a really good performance against Houston, a really bad one against the Cardinals, just a really hapless performance. Aaron Rodgers, 22 of 35, 151. That offense just got shut down, while Kyler Murray with 266 yards and a touchdown on 22 of 24. Completion over 90%, I believe. I'm doing the math correctly, but Arizona just absolutely dominant over New York, to the point where there was no scoring for most of third and fourth, but Arizona getting the win, knocking off the Jets. Cowboys falling to the Eagles. Cooper Rush, just not a great game at all. 13 of 23, 45 yards. Jalen Hurts, 2 of 2, 2 touchdowns and a pick. A.J. Brown, 109. But it was really all Philadelphia. Dallas couldn't stop them. Dallas couldn't score. So the Eagles roll in that one. They're 7-2. The Lions knocking off the Texans in a game where Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. C.J. Stroud threw 2. The Texans dominating, having the lead at the half, 23-7, but it was Detroit with all the scoring in the second half, including some long field goals, a 58-yarder in the fourth to tie the game, and a 52-yarder that barely went in for a Detroit Lions win. They look really good. They're 8-1. I'd say they look better than Kansas City. And then to finally end the week, Miami getting their 3rd win of the season with Tua Tagovailoa in their game, and that really helped because no Florida team in the FCS, FBS, or NFL had won. So the Dolphins really saving Florida's behind there, and able to knock off the Rams, who are trying to stay alive in the NFC West, who are now 4-5. But just quite an interesting game there. But Tua Tagovailoa, back into action, playing well on the West Coast. But I really wanted to focus in on this week in the NFL because we've got some really good games to talk about. I mean, just starting tonight, I'm recording this on a Thursday now. Washington taking on Philadelphia for first place in the NFC East. The Commanders 7-3, the Eagles 7-2. This one could really decide it. Yeah, the revenge game for Jahan Dotson. It should be a really interesting game. One of if not the best game of the week. Commanders have struggled. They after losing their opener to Tampa Bay, they've not been able to beat two of the top teams in the AFC North again with the Ravens and the Steelers. That AFC North race certainly an interesting one with both Pittsburgh at 7-2, Baltimore 7-3, far and away. Going to be the two playoff teams of that division. But in the NFC East, these are going to be the two playoff teams. So who wants it more? And the Commanders have taken such a step forward under Jaden Daniels. But Philadelphia has won 5 in a row, including some scrappy victories. The Browns, the Giants, the Bengals, Jacksonville, and the Boys. But this time taking on Washington. Besides all of that, so that should be a really good game. I have no idea who's going to win. I hope it's the Commanders. I don't like the Philadelphia Eagles one bit. I do like the Commanders a lot. So, Commanders have been able to take one away from Philly even when they haven't been playing their best. So that should be quite the interesting game there. Some of the other good ones of the week. Let's just run through them. Raiders, Dolphins, Browns, Saints, Colts, Jets. Not a lot to talk about. Vikings, Titans, Packers, Bears, Jaguars, Lions, Rams, Patriots. Just a lot of meh. But then we get to Ravens, Steelers. The Steelers' first divisional clash, I believe, of the season, and they haven't played any divisional teams all year. But now they play. I believe six of their last 8 are divisional games, and the two that are not are interstate rivalry with the Steelers going to Philadelphia to take on Philadelphia Eagles. And that's a little late game there, and that should be a good one too, with both teams having the records that they do. So a little Battle of Pennsylvania, and then Christmas Day getting the Chiefs. So the Steelers playing 3 games in 10 days, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, and then taking on the Baltimore Ravens in another divisional, and then the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas Day. So those should all be really good games as well. So I believe that would be Sunday to Saturday to Friday. It's a really interesting schedule for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I just realized. But that is their schedule. So a lot of divisional games for Pittsburgh. The two that aren't, also interesting matchups, going to Philly and then hosting the Super Bowl champions, so far undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. So a lot of great matchups on the slate for Pittsburgh. But it all starts this week with the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson and company going to take on Pittsburgh. Both teams have been playing really well, have good quarterbacks. A revenge game for Patrick Queen. A lot of players just switching divisions left and right. Some of the other matchups here. Seahawks taking on the 49ers. That should be a big NFC West game. Falcons, Broncos. Chiefs taking on the Bills, as I mentioned, a big one. The Chiefs just keep finding a way to keep winning. Can they do it this year against Buffalo? I would say probably not, but they, knowing them, they might find a way to keep going. I mean, you take a look at the Philadelphia Eagles last year, the Steelers a few years ago, starting really well and imploding. I mean, that could happen if they continue to play like this. But the way the Chiefs are, they'll find a way to keep it going, and they'll assuming they'll play they'll play better later on. I mean, they definitely can. I mean, it's the Chiefs. They have the championship DNA, but they just haven't been great. Like, they just haven't been great. The Bills also, they've had a couple tough losses, but I mean, the Chiefs have been relying on like missed kicks and like all sorts of magic and logic, and it's just, I mean, can they keep this going? I mean, they have the roster to do it. They have Kelsey, they have Mahomes, they have Worthy, they have they have DeAndre Hopkins. Pacheco should come back. Hunt's been good. The defense has been insane, but at the same time, I mean, the Chiefs, so far have been pretty good. I mean, they've cruised through a relatively easy schedule after the first couple of weeks, but this Bills team is not going to let them win if they play, if they play their the way they've been playing. They're going to have to step it up. I mean, they have on defense. On offense, they they on offense they haven't been great. So they haven't been great, but I think they could pick it up. But they pick it up. If they recover more fumbles. Yeah, Mahomes throws less picks. I mean, they'll get Pacheco. And if they end up with a better team, then I think maybe they probably won't go undefeated because they're just not being dominant. They're just really not there's really not being dominant. So yeah, I mean it's just absolutely insane. I mean it's just just they just really haven't looked that good. But at the same time, they've had the roster. The defense has been a machine. I mean, you got George Karlaftis, you've got Chris Jones. They've got a really good defense. Mahomes has been iffy, but they've been able to win. Kelsey has been catching passes worthy. Rashee Rice has been out. They got DeAndre Hopkins. The running game, Kareem Hunt instead of Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, it's just been plug and play. And they've been able to win, but I don't think they're going to keep. I don't think they're going to keep winning if they play like this. Although they could easily turn it around in the postseason, as we've seen them do last year and previous years as well. So we'll see. You'll see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens there. But we'll see what happens there. But you know, the Buffalo Bills in an unfriendly environment. The Bills, looking like a good team. This game is going to tell us a lot about their playoff hopes, not even playoff hopes, about their undefeated hopes and about how good they really are because the Bills have won the past 3 regular season matchups. The Chiefs did win, I believe, the last couple playoff matchups. So including last year in Buffalo. So we'll have to see how that happens. But just some perspective there on the Kansas City Chiefs continuing to go undefeated this long and winning these games in the most ridiculous fashions of all time. Even I'm getting tired of it. And I mean, I guess that's really saying something. I've been a big Chiefs fan for a little while, and I'm getting tired of it. But with that being said, the Bengals taking on the Chargers in the Sunday night game, and then the Battle of Texas. Texans, Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Houston now coming off a couple losses in a row, but still 6-4. Dallas with Dak Prescott not in the game. They'll have Cooper Rush in there for that one. Then they get the Commanders and the Giants for the Thanksgiving Day game. But that's going to be the NFL coverage for this week. Really looking forward to some of these games. Commanders, Eagles, Ravens, Steelers, and Chiefs, Bills, really highlighting the slate there. I guess just to keep going here. NBA back in action. Definitely enjoy watching that. The Cavs undefeated to start the season. They're sitting at 13-0. They haven't lost yet. The Celtics 10-3, looking at another title run there. The Nets have been surprisingly decent. I would say. They're sitting at 5-7, and people are saying Giannis might want to come to Brooklyn, depending on the stage of the rebuild. Other people are saying get Cooper Flag or Ace Bailey. They have a lot of picks. They have a lot of picks for other teams. The Bucks have just not been great, although they've won 2 straight now. Giannis dropping 59. Then Karl Towns at 46. Just a lot of Wembanyama at 50. A lot of big scoring performances. But Milwaukee just having a struggling start to the season. The Sixers without Paul George, they haven't been great. They're 2-9. The Raptors 2-10. Pistons also not as bad. They're 5-8. It's very early on in the season, but that's kind of how the race is. Everything's stacked up, but the Cavs have gotten ahead with 13-0. The Celtics 10-3 in the West. The Thunder starting out hot 10-2. Golden State knocking off Dallas in Klay Thompson's return. With the Warriors now 9-2, Suns 9-3. The Nuggets with 5 straight wins. They are 7-3. Rockets, Lakers, Grizzlies, Kings. It's really too early for this, but just NBA action back. The Cavs definitely the early season surprise, and then over into the NHL world. Panthers leading in the Atlantic, followed by the Maple Leafs, the Bruins, the Devils with a sizzling start to the season this year. Everything clicking for New Jersey. They sit with 24 points. The Hurricanes not far behind with 22. So that should be a good game on next Thursday when the two of them play each other. Yeah, it should definitely be a really good game there for the Devils. But yeah, and then in the West, the Jets, Winnipeg Jets, with a solid record, they are sitting at 15 and just 15 wins and 1 loss, no overtime losses, 30 points to lead the Central and a 7-game win streak. They've been absolutely insane. The Wild Stars, the Avs, and the Golden Knights and in the Pacific was 22 points. So yeah, I mean that's kind of hockey. Just some basic stuff going on here, but yeah, it's been another big week of college football in the NFL. As always, I'll get back to you next week. So this has been another episode of Sports Vibe. I'm your host, Arnav Sarkar. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.